On the eve of what should have been one of the most beautiful royal moments in modern history, something terrifying happened inside Westminster Abbey, something the world still doesn't know. Hours before Kate Middleton was set to wear a crown, a royal guard stumbled upon a quiet, almost invisible threat, one that could have changed the future of the monarchy forever. And the most chilling part, the danger wasn't coming from outside the palace walls. It was already inside if stories like this pull you in, the hidden moments, the close calls, the secrets behind the royal curtain. Go ahead and tap like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves royal history and suspense. It helps the channel more than you think, and it tells me you want more stories just like this. The morning light slipped into Westminster Abbey like a quiet guest, soft, respectful, almost reverent. It washed over stone pillars, brushed against centuries-old carvings, and shimmered across the velvet-lined display where Kate Middleton's coronation crown rested in all its brilliant promise. To the world outside, this day will be perfect, historic, joyful. But inside the Abbey, in the private corners where cameras never look, something felt unsettled. Not wrong, not yet, just off. And Royal Guard Daniel Whitmore felt it before anyone else. Daniel wasn't famous. He wasn't decorated with flashy medals. He wasn't the kind of guard the press wrote about. But he had something that mattered far more inside the guarded walls of the monarchy, a flawless instinct. The kind forged by years of quiet observation, long hours, and an unshakable devotion to protecting the family most of the world only admired from far away. He had arrived early. Too early, according to his supervisor. But Daniel had always trusted his habits, and this morning, something had tugged at him hard enough to shorten his sleep by an hour. Royal events attracted unusual attention. Not just from adoring crowds, but from people who like to test the lines of history, bend them, sometimes break them. And today, Kate would wear a crown, one that symbolized continuity, legacy, and strength. A crown that had been handled, polished, transported, cleaned, inspected, and guarded by dozens of people over the past 2 weeks. Too many people, if Daniel was honest with himself. He stood beside the altar now, letting his eyes quietly scan the room. Everything appeared peaceful. Floors smoothing out their last bouquets, lighting technicians whispering to one another, camera crews positioning their lenses for the perfect shot. It was all normal, expected, controlled, but it still didn't sit right with him. His gaze drifted toward the side chamber, the room where Kate's crown had been kept under constant surveillance. Access was restricted. He knew exactly who had permission to enter, which was why the sight in front of him made his breath catch hard in his chest. A woman in a maintenance uniform stood with her back to him, lingering near the door. She wasn't cleaning. She wasn't adjusting equipment. She wasn't doing anything. She was simply standing there, too still, too aware. Daniel's step slowed. His heartbeat didn't. "Who is she?" he whispered to himself. He didn't recognize her, and he prided himself on recognizing every authorized face within these walls. The woman placed her hand on the door's handle. His pulse spiked. Maintenance staff didn't have access to that chamber. That rule existed for a reason, a very good reason. He watched, hidden behind a carved pillar of a stone saint, as she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metallic object, a key, but not a standard one. This key gleamed like it was new, too new, like it had been made for a single purpose. Daniel inhaled, quiet but sharp. Something was wrong, truly wrong now. Still, he didn't move. Not yet. He waited for one tiny mistake, one slip, one gesture that would confirm the dread building in his chest. The woman glanced over her shoulder, checking her surroundings with the smoothness of someone who'd been trained to do so, someone who expected cameras and guards and eyes, not someone who dusted the pews for a living. There it was. Confirmation. Daniel stepped forward at last. "Excuse me," he said, voice firm and calm. The woman jolted, her hand whipping away from a lock. She spun around, eyes too wide, too bright, like she was caught between fear and calculation. "Oh, I'm sorry," she stammered. "Didn't see you there." "That room is restricted," Daniel replied. "No aggression, no threats, just clear authority." She forced a smile. "I was told to double-check the humidity levels inside. Standard maintenance protocol." That was the moment Daniel knew for certain. No maintenance worker checked humidity levels. Not ever. "Who instructed you?" he asked. There was a split-second pause before her answer, and that pause told him everything. The supervisor. She didn't name one. She didn't try. She couldn't. Daniel took a careful step closer. "I'll need to see your identification." The woman swallowed. Her fingers tightened around the key. His eyes tracked every small movement. He could see her mind racing, calculating escape routes, timing distances. He'd seen the same look in suspects he'd chased during previous covert threats. "Ma'am," he repeated, firmer this time. "Your ID." She didn't give it. She ran. It happened all at once. A sudden burst of movement, her shoes slamming against the floor as she bolted down the side corridor. Daniel reacted instantly. Years of training snapped into place like muscle memory. "Security breach," he barked over his radio. "Unauthorized individual heading south corridor." He chased her through hallways tourists never saw, tight stone passages, and winding paths used only by staff. She moved fast, much too fast for someone who supposedly cleaned floors. Her steps were precise, her decisions quick, her awareness razor-sharp. Daniel's breath hitched, not from exhaustion, but from grim realization. This wasn't a confused worker. This was a plant, placed here with purpose. And that key had been meant for Crown. She darted through a narrow service door and burst into the courtyard. Daniel followed seconds later, but she was already gone, disappeared like smoke and wind. He scanned the empty courtyard wildly. No footprints, no movement, nothing but the morning breeze. But then he saw it, a flash of white near a flower bed, a badge. He knelt, picked it up, turned it over, and froze. It wasn't her badge. It belonged to a man with high-level security clearance, someone who absolutely did have access to the Crown Chamber. Daniel's stomach tightened into a hard knot. This wasn't a simple intrusion. This was an operation, coordinated, prepared, hidden behind the most anticipated royal moment of the decade. He stood slowly, gripping the badge as the weight of what he just stumbled into settled heavily onto his shoulders. Someone had tried to reach Kate's crown. Someone with a plan. And someone with help from inside. The morning's calm was gone. The ceremony wasn't for hours yet, but danger was already awake, alive, moving freely inside the Abbey. And Daniel Whitmore was now the only person who knew the monarchy was in immediate, invisible danger. The badge in Daniel's hand felt heavier than any piece of plastic should, not because of its physical weight, but because of what it represented. A betrayal hidden in plain sight. The photo on it showed a man in his mid-50s, silver hair neatly combed, a tight professional smile. Malcolm Renford, senior security liaison, a man trusted with protecting the very crown that had nearly fallen into a stranger's hands. Daniel didn't know him well. Few guards did. Malcolm worked behind the scenes, in offices and high-clearance rooms that required more signatures and footsteps. But everyone knew his reputation. Precise, methodical, unshakably loyal, or so they thought. The courtyard around Daniel was silent, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful but expectant, as if the walls themselves were waiting for his next move. He tapped his radio. "Control, this is Whitmore. I have reason to believe a coordinated breach is underway. I need Renford located immediately." Static, then a voice responded, steady but strained. "Copy, Whitmore. Renford hasn't checked in yet this morning. Last log swipe at 5:42 a.m. Storage corridor C. That was odd. No one needed to be in that corridor before sunrise, especially not someone who only dealt with paperwork and clearances." Daniel moved, fast. His steps echoed through the Abbey's back passageways, the stone walls swallowing sound almost as soon as it left him. Every turn felt longer, every shadow thicker. His instincts weren't whispering anymore, they were shouting. He reached Corridor C, a narrow stretch with overhead pipes and dim yellow lighting. The air felt colder here, heavier. He slowed his pace, one hand hovering near his belt, ready for anything. Halfway down the corridor, he noticed something, a door, slightly open, a faint metallic smell drifting out. He approached cautiously and pushed the door wider. Inside, chaos. Not loud chaos, silent chaos. The kind that hides behind order. A storage room meant for cleaning supplies now looked like a miniature operation center. A table had been dragged in the middle of the room, covered with documents, blueprints, and a laptop still glowing with life. The screen displayed building schematics of Westminster Abbey, detailed, zoomed-in sections highlighted in red. Those weren't tourist maps. They were structural maps, security maps. Daniel's pulse quickened. Someone had planned this deeply. But what made him freeze wasn't the papers. It was a jacket on the floor, navy blue, embroidered with a security crest. A name tag clipped to the pocket. Malcolm Renford. Daniel knelt and lifted the jacket. The sleeve was torn. A smear of something dark stained the cuff. Blood. Fresh. He stood, every muscle tightening. Something terrible had happened here, either to Malcolm or because of him. And whoever had been in this room was only minutes ahead of him. A faint sound broke the silence. A soft electronic chirp. Not from the laptop, from across the room. Daniel turned slowly. A locked metal case sat against the wall, half hidden behind a mop bucket. The chirp came again, steady, rhythmic, controlled. His stomach lurched. He recognized the sound. Timers on specialized devices made sounds like that. He took one careful step closer, then another. The case had no external markings, but its reinforced edges were unmistakable. It wasn't cleaning equipment. It wasn't storage. It was tactical gear. He pressed his ear closer. The beeping wasn't frantic, just consistent, like something waiting for activation. He didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, he snapped a photo on his secure device and sent it straight to control. Possible device found in storage C, he reported. Request bomb squad now. A moment of silence. Then, understood. Team rerouting. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Too long if something was set to detonate sooner. Too short if someone was coming back to finish what they started. Daniel backed out of the room, keeping his eyes locked on the case. That's when he noticed something else. 3 footprints on the dusty floor. Not his. Smooth-soled, deliberate. Moving away from the room, not toward it. He followed them into the hallway. They curved to the right, down toward a stairwell rarely used except by senior staff. The same stairwell that led directly to the northern vestibule, the route through which Kate's crown would be transported to the altar. Daniel cursed under his breath. Whoever had run from him earlier wasn't working alone. Whoever planted that device wasn't improvising. This was a coordinated assault from the inside, designed to hit the monarchy at its most vulnerable moment. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his breath steady, his focus sharp. When he reached the vestibule, the room was empty, eerily so. But the crown's transport case, normally guarded by 2 personnel at all times, sat by itself on a table. Daniel's chest tightened. The guard team assigned here would never abandon their posts. Then he saw them. 2 guards, unconscious, slumped against the far wall. Their breathing was shallow, but they were alive. A faint medicinal smell hung in the air. Sedatives. Fast-acting, probably aerosolized. Someone had incapacitated them in seconds. He checked their pulses quickly, relieved to find them stable, though unresponsive. "Control," he murmured urgently. 2 guards down in the northern vestibule. Likely sedative exposure. Medical needed. "On the way," Control replied, their voice rising with concern. Daniel moved back to the transport case. His fingers hovered above the latch. He hesitated, not out of fear, but because he understood the magnitude of what he might find. If the crown was gone, if it had been tampered with, if the sabotage had already succeeded. He exhaled once, steadying himself. Then he opened the case. The crown lay inside, shimmering under the overhead lights. Every jewel sharp, every curve perfect, every detail exactly as it should be. But something else caught his eye. A faint mark on the velvet cushion. A smudge. A trace. Not dust. Dust didn't smear like that. He leaned closer. A clear, oily residue. Barely visible, but unmistakably deliberate. His stomach turned. Whatever the intruder had planned, it wasn't theft. It was contact. Something meant to touch skin. Something meant for Kate. Daniel stepped back, his world narrowing to a single, horrifying realization. The crown wasn't just a symbol. It was a weapon waiting to be used. And someone inside the abbey had prepared it for her. Daniel stood motionless as the oily residue glistened faintly under the vestibule lights. One drop, maybe two, spread thin enough to vanish under the wrong angle, but potent enough to turn a ceremony into a tragedy. His throat tightened. This was no amateur plot. Whoever planned this knew how to strike without leaving a trace. And whoever planted it was still inside the abbey. He tapped his radio again, voice controlled, but edged with urgency. Control, I need immediate forensic response on the crown. Containment protocols, level 5. This is an active threat. Static. Then, level 5 confirmed. Moving. Daniel closed the transport case carefully, as though he were handling the most fragile object on Earth. In some ways, he was... One careless brush of a fingertip could activate whatever was waiting inside, and that whatever, poison, irritant, chemical agent, was meant for Kate alone. He rose to his feet, just as a shadow shifted at the edge of his vision. Someone was watching him. He turned. A figure stood in the hall. Broad shoulders, stiff posture, a uniform that didn't match the morning staff rotation. For a beat, they stared at each other, the air between them tight as a drawn wire. Then the figure turned sharply and walked away. Not rushed, not panicked, calculated. Daniel followed. The corridor they entered was narrow, lined with portraits of past monarchs who watched silently from gilded frames. Daniel's footsteps were light and controlled as he kept distance between them. He didn't know if this person was armed. He didn't know if this person had backup. He only knew one thing. They should not be here. The figure slipped into a side chamber. Daniel closed the distance. He peered inside cautiously, only to find the room empty, save for fluttering curtains from an open window. He stepped inside, scanning the walls, corners, shadows. No movement, no sounds. Gone. But as he moved toward the window, something on a nearby table caught his eye. A clipboard. Not unusual, but the signature at the bottom made his chest tighten. Malcolm Renford. His name. His handwriting. Authorizing access to the crown's holdings 2 hours earlier. Daniel lifted the clipboard gently, examining it. Something was wrong. The signature was perfect, but too perfect. Not a single hesitation mark. No natural pen pressure variances. More like a digital trace, printed onto the sheet. Someone forged Renford's authorization. But why forge it if Malcolm already had clearance? Unless Malcolm wasn't cooperating. Unless Malcolm wasn't alive to sign anything at all. A cold shiver crawled across Daniel's spine. He set the clipboard down and scanned the room again, this time with sharper suspicion. And that's when he saw it. A faint, nearly invisible boot scuff on the sill. Someone had used the window as an escape route. The outside led to a rooftop ledge that wrapped around the abbey. Dangerous for most people, not for someone trained. He leaned out. The ledge was empty, but not clean. He spotted a scrap of cloth caught on the rough stone edge, a torn piece of uniform. The same dark tone the fleeing figure wore. He pocketed it, turned away from the window, and froze. Another figure now stood in the doorway, this one familiar. Sharp uniform, sharper expression. Commander Elise Harland, the highest-ranking security official on the ground that morning. "Whitmore," she said, voice steady but clipped, "I've been looking for you." "Ma'am," Daniel replied with a nod, "we have a serious breach. Confirmed contamination attempt on the crown. 2 guards down. Unauthorized access. And someone impersonating Renford." Her eyes flicked to the clipboard, then back to him. Renford had been found. Daniel held his breath. Where? Lower mechanical sublevel. Locked inside a utility closet. He's unconscious but alive. Elevated heart rate, likely sedative. He never made any authorizations. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then someone used his clearance as a shield. And they walked right past half our staff while doing it, Harlan said. "We're sweeping the building as we speak, but whoever you saw, they know this place. They know our patterns. They're not improvising, they're executing a plan. A plan bigger than just the crown, Daniel said. Harlan studied him. Explain. Daniel took a breath. Ma'am, I don't think the crown was the final target. I think it was the first one. A distraction. A way to strike where we wouldn't expect it. You think there's more? I think there's someone else inside. And I think they're not done. Harlan didn't argue. That silent agreement was all Daniel needed to confirm his fear. She signaled him to follow. They moved quickly out of the chamber, passing tapestries, heavy archways, and staff who were blissfully unaware that history had nearly taken a deadly detour. They reached the operations room, a temporary command center built for the ceremony. Monitors lined the walls, displaying feeds from every corner of the Abbey. Security specialists tapped at keyboards, adjusting angles, zooming in on shadows, tracking every staff member in real time. Harlan gestured to a technician. Pull up corridor C camera feeds. 5:30 a.m. to now. Footage played. A dim hallway. A figure entering storage. Not Malcolm. Daniel leaned in. A woman. The same woman he had chased. Her uniform was different here. No cleaning badge. She moved with the confidence of someone who had walked these halls many times. She opened the storage door with Malcolm's card. She entered. Minutes later, she left wearing a different jacket and hat. A guard's uniform. A disguise swap. Layered deception. Daniel watched the footage with a tight stomach. If she had gone such lengths to get close to the crown, what else was she using her disguise for? The technician paused the footage. She heads toward the East Wing after this. Harlan's eyes narrowed. East Wing leads to two things: the audio control suite and the restricted balcony. Daniel swallowed hard. A balcony with a direct view of the crown's procession path. And with a single strike from that angle, it wouldn't just be sabotage. It would be a message. Harlan turned to Daniel. Find her. She's not working alone. And we're running out of time. Daniel nodded once and sprinted out of the room. His footsteps echoed through the ancient halls as he raced toward the East Wing, toward the woman, the mastermind behind the sabotage, and the truth sitting at the center of it all. Every corner felt sharper now, every breath tighter, every second louder, because somewhere in the shadows of Westminster Abbey, a hidden hand was preparing to finish what it had started, and Kate Middleton had no idea how close danger still stood. Daniel's footsteps thundered through the East Wing corridor, each stride fueled by a single sharp reality. The woman wasn't running anymore. She was moving with purpose. Purpose meant she was close to her objective, and if it didn't stop her now, the world would learn about the threat only after it struck. The East Wing was quieter than the rest of the Abbey. Narrower halls, fewer people, more shadows. Daniel slowed his pace at the final turn, forcing his breathing steady. He couldn't rush blindly anymore. Not here. Not now. He pressed his back against the stone wall, inching toward the balcony access. From beyond the wooden door came a faint tap, then another, soft, rhythmic, mechanical, a device. He didn't need to see it to know. His hand tightened around his radio. Control, he whispered. East Wing balcony. Possible secondary device. I'm engaging alone. Advise backup to... He stopped. The tapping had stopped too. Daniel pushed the door open. The balcony was bathed in pale morning light. Tourists would have seen beauty. A stunning view of the courtyard. But Daniel wasn't a tourist. He saw pressure points, angles, exits, and at the far end of the balcony, half hidden behind a structural pillar, she stood there. The woman from the crown chamber. The woman from the hallway. The woman who had orchestrated more in a few hours than most criminals manage in years. Her guard uniform was gone now. She wore black, simple, unmarked, easy to disappear in. Her hair was tied back. Her hands worked quietly on a device no bigger than a small lantern, wires exposed like veins. Daniel stepped out fully. Don't move. She froze, shoulders rising with a slow breath. You're persistent, she said softly. Her accent was faint, Eastern European, but polished enough to mask origins. Most guards would have stayed out of this. You're not giving me much of a choice, Daniel replied. Step away from the device. She turned, finally letting him see her face clearly. Calm, sharp, calculating. You think I came here to poison the crown? She asked. You think that was the real objective? She shook her head once. No, the crown was a test, a distraction, to see how your security responds. And you, Officer Whitmore, she smiled faintly, you responded better than expected. Daniel took a step closer, weapon lowered but steady, then explained the device. She tilted her head. Explain? Why? You'll try to stop it regardless. Try me? She studied him. For a moment, he thought she might actually open up, but instead, she pressed her thumb against a small black switch on the device. Daniel tensed. Don't. It's already armed, she murmured. Proximity triggered now. You shoot me, it detonates. You tackle me, it detonates. You scream for help, vibrations might set it off. Her eyes softened slightly. Don't take another step. Daniel stopped moving. This wasn't fear. It was calculation. She was cornered, and when cornered individuals made choices, they rarely favored mercy. What do you want? He asked. Leverage, she answered simply. Chaos. Proof that the monarchy is vulnerable, that the world's most guarded family is still human. Today was meant to show that no amount of tradition or ceremony can protect them from people like us. But why Kate? He demanded. Why her? The woman hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Because she symbolizes stability, she said. Grace. Hope. The world looks at her and believes things are good, sometimes too good. And people like my employers, they like things shaken. There it was. Confirmation. She wasn't alone. She wasn't acting for herself. She was a weapon for someone else's agenda. Deactivate the device, Daniel said quietly. Walk away from this. We can negotiate. Her laugh was soft, almost pitying. Negotiate? My life ended the moment I entered this building. She tapped her ear gently. They're listening. They always listen. If I deviate from the plan, they erase me. If I'm captured, they erase me. If I succeed, she shrugged, they erase me anyway. But at least there is purpose. Then let me give you another purpose. Daniel pushed. Let me save you. She blinked, the faintest crack in her composure. I don't want to die today, he added, voice low. And I don't think you do either. Her jaw tightened. For the first time, she looked uncertain. A faint crackle sounded in Daniel's earpiece. Backup approaching down the hall. Heavy boots. Too loud. Too many. Her eyes widened. They're coming, she whispered. And they'll shoot on sight. Daniel raised his voice just enough. Control, hold position. Nobody enters the east wing. Repeat, nobody enters. The footsteps halted. He exhaled slowly. See? I'm not your enemy. The woman swallowed. Her hand lifted off the detonator switch, just slightly. And then a shout echoed from the far hallway behind them. Armed suspect on the balcony. No, too soon, too loud. Her eyes flared with panic. Her thumb slammed toward the device. Daniel lunged. Time slowed into fragments. Her thumb pressing down, his hand catching her wrist. The device slipping sideways. A metallic click, not an explosion. A fail-safe latch. They crashed onto the stone floor, the device skidding across the balcony. Daniel pinned her wrist, disarming her knife with a swift kick. She struggled, breath sharp, movements desperate. It's over, he said through clenched teeth. It's done. But she shook her head, eyes glistening, finally showing fear. You don't understand, she whispered. It was never this device alone. Daniel froze. What? She exhaled shakily. I wasn't the only one placed here. His breath chilled. Where's the second operative? Before she could answer, a voice crackled through his radio. Device located in the western choir loft. Countdown visible. Request immediate assistance. Daniel's heart slammed hard. There was another one. He turned back to the woman, but her eyes had softened, resigned. You won this one, she murmured. Go. Save them. He didn't know why, but he believed her. He left her with 2 armed officers rushing in, sprinting across the Abbey with every muscle screaming. Each second felt like a falling stone inside his chest. He reached the choir loft in under a minute. The device sat beneath a row of hymnals, a timer blinking down its final 90 seconds. A bomb tech knelt beside it, sweating, shaking. "I can't disarm it alone," he said. "I need steady hands." Daniel dropped to his knees beside him, forcing his breathing calm. "What do you need?" "Pressure on this wire," the tech said. "Minimal, exact. If it slips, it blows." Daniel placed his fingers with surgeon-like precision. The wire hummed beneath his touch. "Steady," the tech whispered. Time bled away. 40 seconds. 30. 20. A final snip. Silence. The lights on the device dimmed to black. The tech exhaled. "It's safe." Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to shake. Epilogue: A Guard in the Shadows. Kate's ceremony proceeded flawlessly hours later, the crown sparkling safely atop her head. Cameras flashed. Crowds cheered. History moved as if nothing had almost shattered it. But Daniel stood at the back, anonymous in the sea of uniforms. No medals, no announcement, no spotlight. And that was exactly how he preferred it, because the world would remember Kate's radiant smile, not the man who saved it.